with some examples where we're applying the linear models to some real life problems. Let's just review really quickly those equations of the lines. And you guys already in the warm-up told me about y equals mx plus b, right? Okay, this is called slope-intercept form. It has a name. And it's called slope-intercept form for a reason, because you get the slope and you get the y-intercept, right? We don't know the x-intercept. We could find it if we solve, but we got the y-intercept, okay? In this equation, anytime you see just like a regular x and y represent any point on the line. But we would want to leave it as a variables, right? Like y equals 3x plus 5, y equals 2x plus 2. So we can put in different x's and get out different y's. Okay. Now, I'm also going to put like a little heart. And during first hour, we put smiley face. Everybody loves slope-intercept form, right? It's the one that you know best. So I'm totally okay with that. Use slope-intercept form. This is our go-to form. Does anybody remember any other forms for the equation of a line? It makes a line, but the equation looks different. Oh, Izzy. There is point slope form. Oh, I'm glad you remembered that one. Okay, so I'm going to put a point slope form over here. Now, point slope form is called point slope form because you know a point and you know the slope. So you get, instead of like the regular x and y, you get x sub 1, y sub 1, which is a point on the line that you know. So I'm going to say a point you know. So like think about the warm-up. We knew the point 2, 1. So that could be our x sub 1 and our y sub 1. And then m is your slope, of course. And the equation looks like this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, from my experience here in Papillion La Vista, I know that your Algebra 2 teachers really focus hard on the slope-intercept form, which is why we put the smiley face and the heart next to it, because we love it. But there is some value to point slope form as we progress through higher level math. Like I know in pre-calculus, in one section, we use point slope form just because it's easier. Okay, and then I don't make students put it in slope-intercept form. But let's think about like your warm-up example. You guys told me, what was the slope in the warm-up again? 1/2, and then the point that we knew was 2, 1, right? Or we could use, was the other one 10, 5? Okay, we could use either point, but I'll use the 2, 1. So I could write the point slope form, y minus 1 equals 1/2 times x minus 2. Now, if you wanted to graph a line in point slope form, you could. You would just have to know that when you take out this y sub 1 and when you take out this x sub 1, they look like the opposites, right? Because they have these minus signs in front of them. So your x is really positive 2 and your y is really positive 1. So I could plot a point at 2, 1. And then if my slope is 1 over 2, I could do rise over run, right? Up 1, right 2. Or I could go backwards, down 1, left 2. And that's sort of what, was that Alex's group that gave it to me that way? That's kind of what you guys were thinking about anyway, right? From a particular point, move with the slope. This is the same line that you guys told me most groups had on their whiteboards, y equals 1/2 x. That's that same line. It just looks different. You may have experienced when you learned point slope before that you would have been asked to make it look like slope-intercept form. So you would distribute your 1/2. You'd get y minus 1 equals 1/2 x minus 1. Add 1 to both sides, and voila, It's the same equation. Okay. But you could really leave it in point slope form and graph from point slope form. That would also be acceptable. Okay. I actually really like point slope form sometimes, but I would encourage you to use slope intercept form for most of what we do today because that's probably what everybody's most comfortable with. Okay. Does anybody remember any other equations of lines? The other equation of a line that I'll mention is probably like the least favorite of people's. It's ax plus by equals c. Ever see that before? This is called standard form. And it's called standard form and not something wonderful like slope intercept or point slope because you really got nothing. A, B, and C aren't intercepts, they aren't slopes, right? In this one, we can easily find intercepts by subbing 0 in for x or 0 in for y, but just looking at those numbers in the equations, you don't know anything about the graph. You can always solve this one for y, which is what a lot of people always do. by equals negative ax plus c. Are you okay with that? And move the ax to the other side. Divide everything by b. Y equals negative a over b. X plus c over b. We don't really do this in the United States, but whenever I have foreign exchange students, if foreign exchange students see standard form, they have these things memorized. So like while I said A, B, and C don't mean anything to us in the equation, like if I gave you 2x plus 3y equals 6, none of those are slopes or intercepts. You know that every time you solve, your slope is going to be negative a over b. So your slope is negative 2/3. And your y-intercept is always c over b. So your y-intercept here would be at 0, 2. Then you could graph it. So if you knew that, if you memorized that little piece, you would get it. Foreign exchange students always have that memorized, and then in the United States, we just teach you, like, solve for y, right? So you would subtract a 2, divide by 3, and you would get the same result. Just kind of interesting. Okay, enough about equations of lines. You guys never knew they were so interesting, did you? Okay, here's a problem for you and your group members to work on. Remember, when I put these problems up on the board, as soon as your group gets an equation, I want that equation on the board in the middle of your pod. That way I can verify if I agree or disagree with your equation. You don't have to show all the work for it. You're doing that in your notebooks. But have the equation there so I can check it. And then if there's other follow-up questions that I'm asking, you don't have to put those on the whiteboard. I just want to make sure our equations of lines are correct. Bless you. Okay. So the graph shows the remaining balance y on a car loan after making x monthly payments. I want you to write the equation of the line with your group. Put that on the whiteboard. I want you to interpret the slope. This means you're going to have to write it out with words and numbers. What does it all mean? Okay, interpret. And interpret the y-intercept. What does the y-intercept represent? And then see if you guys can find the remaining balance after 36 payments. Okay, go for it.
right whatever it is, and then up to 6.
Slope. The slope is
Or by 3.
No, it's not, because the numbers are bigger than this one. It's,
oh, you're right.
so it's,
No, it's not 3 over 10. So by units.
is it?
Yeah.
No, because the numbers are
3 over 10x.
Alright, no, it's not. 5 over 10.
Yeah.
5 over 10 is 1
Those
half.
things should have like labels and words what they mean, right?
Because on the axis it goes like
It's negative 1 half.
no, it doesn't.
I see what they're saying.
No,
I
it
see
goes.
what you're saying.
Because it goes by a different scale.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but. So it'd be. So yeah, it'd be 3 over 10.
Yeah.
I thought that was the same.
The X and the Y axis have different scales. So it's going down by 3 and right by
Because up by 3 and it's halfway between 6.
So that's just plus.
because those grids don't have scales. No, I agree. I see this word. You should be careful. If you did 18 minus 15, then you have to do 0 minus 10. They have to go in the same order of points. And like, look at your line.
You just keep it
Your
going.
head decreases. Your slope has to be negative. You guys have an equation? Write it on your board when you get one. Okay, I agree with your equation. Have you guys talked about the slope and the y-intercept when you solved for 36 months? Okay, you got labels on everything? Yeah, I agree with that equation. So make sure you answer the other questions.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
Yeah, so we're there. Typical.
Now, I would be careful with your slope. The y's are going down by 3.
I've grown. What do you think?
What?
X's are being scaled by.
No.
The slope is nice.
If each box is like 5. Least favorite part.
So you look at your graph.
15, 17 minutes till work. Not gonna see so
Would you use all this?
10 times.
So the y-intercept is like your start.
Wait half an hour.
Okay, let's come together. Sorry, I might have kicked your stuff, Austin.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, this is the equation of the line, most common that I'm seeing around the room. I also saw some people write it, and I would accept this as negative 0.3x plus 18. 3/10 is a terminating decimal, so you can use the decimal too. That's fine with me. There were a couple of different ways that I saw people calculating the slope. I saw people use these 2 points right here and do their slope formula. So 18 minus 15 over 0 minus 10, that's 3 over negative 10, there's our slope. I also saw some people, like if you have a visual like this, you can use rise over run. So some people were saying, okay, what's my rise over run? Well, I'm going down something, and then I'm going right something else. The one thing you have to be careful here is that you have to pay attention to the scales. So the y's are scaling by 3, so I'm going down 3 right there. And my x's are scaling by Well, they're each square is 5s, but then 2 of them, of course, would be 10. So that would be -3/10 when I do rise over run. So same answer, right? Okay, it checks. And then you could find the y-intercept by just looking at the graph. Okay, here's my y-intercept. If your x is 0, your y value is your y-intercept, so you knew that b was 18. Or you could have taken your slope and plugged it in with one of the points. So 18 equals -3/10 times 0 plus b, that's 18 equals b. If there's ever a point that has a 0 in it, I usually choose that because then that could be a really easy calculation. Okay, but it would also work if you chose the point 10, 15. Okay, so I want to know what your groups said for interpreting the slope and interpreting the y-intercept. Okay, anybody want to tell us what -3/10 or -0.3 slope means in this problem? Yes, Zach.
We said that the y-intercept is like the starting amount, like
Okay, and this is a loan, right?
Yeah.
So the y-intercept is the starting balance for the loan, which is how much? 18,000. Oops, balance. So that's worth $18,000. Okay, excellent. And what does that slope of -0.3 or -3/10 mean? Jacob?
Every 10 payments is $3,000.
Every 10 payments is $3,000. Meaning $3,000 paid off, right? Or off the balance of the loan. Every 10 payments is $3,000 paid. Okay, but like, could you imagine having your own car loan? Would you want to know every 10 months? Or would you want to know every month? How much are you paying off every month? If every 10 months you pay off $3,000. You're paying off a $300. Okay. You can take your slope, -3/10, and multiply it by 1,000. That'll cross off one of the zeros when you divide by 10. So it'll be -$300. Or 1 month equals $300 paid. Which probably seems more reasonable, right? Like now I know my monthly payment, I'm paying $300 on my car. But I would accept your answer too. Okay, excellent. Did any groups calculate the remaining balance after 36? Emma, what'd you guys do for that?
I plugged 36 in for X, and then I just solved it all and got 7.2.
And what does that 7.2 mean in the end?
The remaining balance after 36
Is how much?
the 7.2 is 1,000.
Yes. So that's like $7,200, right? Is left over after 3 years. I've paid off about a little more than half of my loan. Okay. And you could have also looked at the graph and just kind of like verified, does that make sense? If I go right 36 and I go up, I'm at a point right here. It looks to be above 6, but less than 8. Okay, it looks like less than half. So I would have guessed somewhere in between 6 and 7, but it's just a little over 7. Okay, good. Excellent job. Okay, now I'm going to show you a different image. Instead of a graph, I'm going to show you a table. Okay, and there's not a whole lot of information here. I've just got a table where I've got the number of classes that you're taking, 2, 5, 7, 11, and then I've got the total fee that you're paying, 28, 40, 48, 64, and this represents your gym membership, okay? So you belong to a gym, you pay a monthly membership to belong, and then they charge you for the individual classes that you take. Does that make sense? So what are some things that you might wonder about given the information on the table and like you're thinking about joining this gym? You might wonder what? Morgan? How much are the individual classes? Okay, so how much are the individual classes? And you might also like to know how much is the monthly fee, you said, right? Okay, talk to your group, see if you can find that. You might also like to know like what classes are offered, you know, what amenities you get. I get that. Of course, we're a math class, so we want the numbers. How much is the monthly fee? See if you can figure this out.
Yeah,
Which one? And the 12 and
you're right. It's a web, it's not so out here in the East Coast. You don't see these species so often living in areas.
Oh, that's like the
Rats! So, and who's your teacher? After death, don't think it's not. Going through the making stage. He's now mating. Yes, I'm the woman.
Just begging people to trace staring at you all I get it. How would you say? Yes, ma'am.
I was saying that like for 3 classes,
If your group has figured it out and you did it one way, is there another way you could do it? Can you find 2 ways to figure it out? You're gonna sing.
It's like the opposite that dudes are important. What you do? Things. Yeah, if you see yes, it's a skill. Just keep some just nice. Keep it up there for later. Got it.
Okay, let's hear from the class. Was anybody able, let's first get the numbers, but of course, I really don't care about the numbers, I care about the process. But each individual class cost $4. And how much is the monthly membership? $20. Okay, so can one group raise their hand and kind of walk us through how they did it? Harvey.
If you look at the difference between 2 classes and 4 classes,
you doing right there? Calculating slope, rate of change. Excellent. Nice job, Harvey. Okay, this is rate of change or slope. So some people, I heard groups like, I don't want to know how to do this algebraically. We're assuming that the classes all cost the same, aren't we? Like whether I'm taking Pilates or kickboxing or spin, I'm paying a flat fee for each individual class that I take. Okay, so we could calculate the slope or the rate of change. And then, did any groups find that $4 differently without the rate of change or the slope? Tommy, you want to tell us what your group thought about?
I just kind of looked at the 5 classes and the 7, and then I could see that there's $8 difference in the 2 classes, so I just did this 4.
Okay. So, yeah, you're kind of looking at rate of change a little bit there, but maybe a little bit more abstract. Anybody else? Did anybody just start guessing? And I'm saying yes.
It was like I knew how to get it. I just like stared at it for a while, and I was like, oh.
Then all the numbers came together. It was cool. That's like a movie, right? They just showed you. Yeah, I mean, the numbers aren't terrible, and of course, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe a class is $5, so you think about 5, but it's too much, then you lower it. So there's ways to like also kind of just like guess and check this problem. And once you figure out like what's changing, then it's easier to go back and figure out what the individual price is. So I had some groups write the equation for this. This would be y equals 4x plus 20. So the thing that we're paying per class, that's our slope, the $4 per class. 20 is a fixed monthly fee that I pay just to join the gym. So you might decide, like if you're looking to purchase a gym membership, if you're not going to be using any classes, you might decide, oh, $20, that's a cheap gym membership. But if you're joining a gym just for classes, you might look at other gyms if there's like a cheaper option for you if classes cost $4. Okay, so I want you to get out your gold sheet before we got about 4 minutes left. But I made a change in your favor. Okay, I had assigned 14 and 16, but those problems are actually like problems of correlation and line of best fit, which I really do enjoy. But we are not covering, we're just covering the basic linear model. So I'm crossing off 14 and 16. You only have to do 3 through 9, which is like our first example. And then 9 might be a word problem, and then 26. So, really give 9 that good old college try, right? Don't be scared just because it has a bunch of words and sentences. You can do it. I want to see what kind of good work you have on Monday.
You can do it.
You guys did a great job. Will you clear your whiteboards and put your caps back on your markers for me?